Thank you, Asta. Assalamu alaikum jami'an, and good morning all. Our speaker for this session is Reema Juffali. Reema is a professional racing driver, and she is also the founder of Theeba Motorsport. She developed an interest in cars in an early stage and made history in 2018 by becoming the first ever Saudi Arabian woman to compete in an international race in her home country, racing on the streets of Riyadh in the Jaguar I-Pace E-Trophy. In 2021, she competed in the GB3 Championship before making her endurance racing debut at the 2022 Dubai 24 Hours, where she finished second in class. In her career to date, Reema has carved a reputation as an inspiring role model to female racing drivers and athletes around the world, and continues to make waves in motorsports. Please join me in welcoming Reema to the stage.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for coming, Reema. It's a pleasure to host you here. So, from what we have read about you, you did not always want to professionally race. So how did you end up choosing this career in the end?
Yeah, that's very true. I think my route to motorsport or racing was very unconventional. Let's say most racing drivers start from a very young age and work their way there. I was in college when I discovered racing, so I was a political science student, international affairs, and realized halfway through my degree that actually this might not be the route that I want to take, and the route I wanted to take was finance. So in the middle of all of this discovery and questions and putting myself out there in this in the world, I realized actually the passion and where everything lies and where I'm really happiest is in the racetrack. But that was an impossible dream. That was something I said, okay, I can do that on the weekend, something I can aspire to learn. But I put that dream aside very early on, thinking, oh, that's unachievable. So graduated from university, shifted into finance, was working for 2-3 years. And I think at that stage I was probably 21, 22 years old, and decided, okay, I'd been away from Saudi for so long, it's time to come back and, you know, contribute. Very excited to be back, and came back in 2017. And, you know, alhamdulillah, there was quite a few opportunities available to me, but every time I took a step, there was like this itching passion. There was something calling me, and I was like, what is going on? What is it that's missing? And I realized that I really wanted to learn how to race. So I told at the time, my business partner, she had a cold feet, and I was like, you know what, if you have cold feet, give me 3 months. I want to go discover this racing thing, and we could pick it up after. And I was 26 at the time, and got behind the car, learned how to race, just very, let's say, in an amateur way. And it was the happiest I ever felt in my life. And I was like, okay, this is something I have to know, I want to do more of, and I want to make more time. And one thing led to another, and I think, let's say, the timing at that stage was right. Like, if you talked to me like 6 years before that, I was like, that's just impossible. There's no way I would be on a track in a car representing Saudi. But I guess timing was on my side. I was mature. I had made the decision at an age where I think, and a time where I believed in what I wanted to do. Whereas the apprehension before didn't allow me to take this risk or this step. So yeah, it was now 4 years ago where I started, and I haven't looked back since. It's been my everyday, and it's caused me a lot of heartbreak, a lot of happiness, everything. And hopefully you can see more Saudis in different fields, whether it's racing or in all these STEM subjects, which is very much, required, and I'd hope to see more in the future.
I think your thought process is something that a lot of the young professionals here actually go through once they graduate college, because a lot of people, while they're in uni, they think, okay, I'm doing this route, but I might not want to work in this field anymore. So I guess the thought process that took you, you weighed out all the risks, the pros and cons, and then you made your decision accordingly.
Yeah, I had to take a risk, right? It wasn't clear like I'm going to jump into this and I know what's behind that door. It was a risk I was willing to take, and I was going to put everything into it. I was going to commit to it, and it was just 3 months, but here I am 4 years later. So
that's actually really impressive, and something that is actually quite significant in the industry that you're in. I'm sure the audience would like to hear about the challenges that you face being a female in a male-dominated industry. So how was that experience for you?
Yeah, that's a question I get asked a lot, and it's the reality. And I, hope that this changes, and we do see more women in the field of motorsport, and behind the wheel as well. Sometimes I completely forget that I'm a woman amongst men because I put my helmet on, and it's about the time. Everything is judged by the stopwatch. So if I can match their times or beat them, or they're another racing driver. But yes, for sure, let's say when I take my helmet off or even walking into the paddock, or let's say the racetrack, there is this air of, oh, she's a female. And I like that I prove them wrong, and I like to kind of change that stereotype, but it comes with a lot of, let's say, in order for me to have made those steps and break into the field of racing, it was a lot of self-belief, a lot of patience, a lot of learning, asking questions. I definitely a lot of hard work. Putting so much time behind the scenes to be able to stand up there. Whether I think it was a female or a male in racing, it's intimidating. So you want to be able to stand your own. How do you do that? By practice, by educating yourself, by, as Mashal mentioned, failing. All these things make you a better driver, a better professional. And I think what we lack maybe in the motorsport field is a bit of opportunity for females. And this is changing, and it's a great thing, but at the same time, the support needs to be there for us to progress. So I hope with Theeba Motorsport, the team I created, I want to be able to help Saudis, men and women alike, to break into motorsport and create opportunity for them.
So speaking of Theeba, you have recently started on an entrepreneurial journey. So what have been your challenges and learnings so far? And seeing that car racing is a passion of yours, now that it's your job, how do you balance the mundaneness of a job between a passion and a career?
I think the biggest thing I learned is winning is a lot better and losing is a lot harder, because you have so much more invested in the passion, and it grows a lot more. And obviously there's so many more people relying on you, you're supporting them. The biggest thing for a team, and I think in racing, is funding. Funding is the biggest thing. It's not, it is a very costly sport, and every accident breaks my heart, but every accident you learn from, whether it's I'm learning from as a driver who was in the car, or the mechanics. The mechanics, if they've changed the front bumper one time, we need them to change it faster. So the more accidents happen, technically, the faster they're going to learn how to change the front bumper. So these are things I think that the challenges are, okay, we have no parts. What are we going to do? How are we going to get back on track? Are we going to be able to make the next race? All of these decisions, thankfully, I have an amazing and supportive team that guide me and help me make these decisions, but sometimes some tough decisions have to be made. And this year we were fighting for the championship. We were fighting for first, and someone, no fault of my own, completely hit me from behind. Thankfully, I was okay. The car wasn't okay, and we had to pull out of the next race. And my job as the founder and the team owner was to make that decision of saying, are we going to reinvest and hurt the finances of the team to make it the next round and hopefully fight for the championship, or are we going to pull out of the championship or pull out of the race, make sure we get our car back together in the right way, and just like take it on the chin, if you like. And probably the hardest decision I had to make this year, but from it, we've rebuilt cars a few times. I've had to pick myself up many times, and these are all learnings that I'm sure will help me and have helped me.
Absolutely, because you touched on a very important part, like safety, not only in terms of the people that work, but also in terms of the car and that vehicle that they're going to be driving, basically. And so that just leads me to my next question. So how do you prepare yourself to have like a winning mindset before a race? And what advice would you be able to give to the audience today in terms of preparing for a momentous day, let's say?
Yeah, I think with big events, big races, the most important thing is coming into it feeling good, feeling like you have, it's like you have an exam. We've all experienced exams. You can't come just before the exam and try and crunch in the work and try and, remember things last minute. Everything really needs to be done beforehand. So that building, that training, I come into a race thinking, okay, I have everything I need. I'm feeling strong. I know what I need to do in the track. I know what the team is required of me. And then that's one side. And then the other side is probably my mentally, not being under stress, trying to manage the stress that I'm under. Just a good night's sleep sometimes does wonders for me, because you're putting yourself, or I'm putting myself in a very, let's say, not high risk, but I make split second decisions all the time. And in order to make those right decisions, I need to be able to adjust, I need to be able to adapt, and I need to be clear. And to be clear means I'm not stressed, I'm not angry, I'm, all of these things. So the balance is there physically, it's there, like, let's say, professionally as a driver, knowing how to drive, but also mentally and emotionally.
That's actually very interesting. And so it's important for us to look at mental health and mental well-being when we're looking at all of those aspects, to simply not only doing our jobs, but also our passions as well. So having started your career in the industry at a mature age, what tips would you be able to give to our audience and our young professionals today in order to not only seize opportunities, but to also optimize on them? Because like you said, sometimes they might start in a route that is not preferable to them, but they would still have to make a decision at that point. So what would you suggest to our audience for today?
Yeah, I like this question. I think for me it actually has changed. The answer to this question has changed the more I've kind of explored and learned through this journey. But one of the biggest lessons and one of the biggest things I've realized coming into something new, something that's maybe intimidating, is that feeling that you have, that apprehension, that sense of fear sometimes, because you just don't know, it's unknown. Don't let that stop you. Don't let that be, don't get in your own way. And I think from 2014, or even before that, 2012 to 2017, when I started racing, all of those years was me saying, oh, that's not possible. Oh, I can't be a racing driver. Oh, standing in my own way, because it just felt like a far-reaching goal. And how did I overcome that? I started asking questions. I started going out to track days and events where, there were like-minded people. And then slowly, that intimidating, goal or aspiration became not as intimidating. And as soon as I, let's say, opened the door, metaphorically, I just said, oh my God, that's actually not so difficult. I made it so much more intimidating in my head because it was something I cared about and I was passionate about. I think that's the best advice, is try not to stand in your own way. And I think the other thing is be prepared to work hard for your goals. It's not going to come easy, and I think what Mashal said, and I completely agree, failure is necessary. And fail better, fail again, fail better. And with racing, it's pretty much in my face all the time. When I crash, like, okay, what am I going to learn from this mistake? And a crash doesn't mean that it's my fault, or it could be that the the conditions change, that it's wet and it's dry in another part of the circuit because of the rain. So you learn from your mistakes, and I have to learn quickly because obviously I don't want to crash again.
Very well said. And honestly, that's let's say it's easier said than done, because honestly, when we fall into mistakes, we just go into the whole pit hole. And how could we have fixed this and not fallen into it? But then in reality, we learn so much from just making these kind of mistakes. Mm-hmm. Did you ever think that you would end up now in comparison to where you thought you would be at this point in your life or career?
No, not a chance. I think I was aspiring, to be a businesswoman, working my way up in finance, maybe starting my own business. But, coming into racing, the biggest lesson and things that I've learned is, going in thinking I'm passionate. I love this. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about what is available out there. And I think looking back now, I would, the only thing probably I would do differently as a younger me is I would try more new things, different things at a young age, and not kind of just stick into that kind of framework or expectation. If I maybe picked up a paintbrush earlier on, maybe I would have got into an art. I think that's far from it, but it's not it's a matter of giving yourself the opportunity and the chance. And to be here now, racing was one thing, but to be racing and then being able to impact Saudis, hopefully, and impact them in a positive way to pursue their own goals and aspirations, it's such a humbling place to be, and such a gift as well that I can offer that. Because to be honest, going into racing, it was purely a personal goal, a personal dream. And thankfully now, with all the opportunity we have available here in Saudi, it's ever changing, and hopefully we see many more young leaders hopefully in the room today.
That's actually very insightful, and I completely agree. So I would like now to open the floor for any questions that we have from the audience. There's a question over there.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello. So we know that passion is the driving motive for a person to reach and go beyond possibilities and expectations. And from the previous session, Ms. Masha'al Shmaimri as well knocked that topic. And she was led by her passion and determination. And the same applies to you. You were in a finance field, and now you're a motorcycle, and the first female motorcycle in the Saudi Arabia. My question is, what's your message to the people who haven't yet found their passion?
I think it's a great question, thank you. I think in order to find your passion, you need to try different things. You need to sometimes be uncomfortable. I now know what I like and what I don't like only because I put myself in different situations, new situations. Ask. It'll surprise you how much is out there, but you just need to almost give yourself that chance in order to find these things. And in the end, if you're knocking on the door and it doesn't, let's say, open, it doesn't work out, there's so many others. But sometimes we're so tunnel visioned, and when it doesn't work out, we're just, completely disappointed. And that's a fair feeling, but pick up from the disappointment and let's knock on the next door. So yeah, just be optimistic, and inshallah, the passion, you will find the passion. I think there's one in the back.
Any other questions?
Yes, Roya, OQ. As I can see from your title position that you are one of the drivers for racing. So as you are aware about the objective of the world nowadays is the clean energy transition, or where we have some zero carbon in the future. How can you explain your challenge in the future where you are driving a car using a fuel, or we can say hydrocarbon? How can you explain this? Actually, the same question I was about to ask it for Masha'al, for the link between the space and the also future zero carbon. So can you explain a little? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I definitely don't think I can answer Mishaal's question. But in terms of racing, I think the future, it's clear that we are going to be without, let's say, internal combustion engines. And it's a sad thing for me to say, but it is the future. And we see this in, let's say, endurance racing and in Formula One, the developments they've made in the car and the advancement, not just in the speed, but the sustainability, the efficiency of the cars. So that is the future, and I think that it will trickle down to, let's say, road cars in the future, but how it works is probably they will find the innovation and eventually we'll see it on the road. I hope that answers your question, but I think it is the future and it's only a matter of time that we experience it.
We have room for one more question.
Actually, I have a question myself. So you have changed your actually major from international politics to finance. How did you evaluate the risk, given that most of the audience are students and they are senior students or fresh graduate? How did you evaluate the risk and the consequences of that decision to change your career path?
Yeah, I think what happened was I was a second-year international affairs student, and I did an internship. And in the internship, I worked for a nonprofit, and all I could hear them saying was, "We need funding. We need funding." And I was like, "Oh my God! Okay, if this is the case, then maybe I should start looking at, how funding. What is funding?" And the next job I did as well, another internship, I realized again the word that kept coming and repeating, and actually maybe it was the one I was hearing, was funding. So it was clear to me that even in order for me to have made an impact, whether it was to continue in this route of nonprofit or social entrepreneurship, that funding was an essential part. So I thought, okay, if this is still the route I want to take, I need to learn finance. I need to learn what it takes to fund a company, to fund an idea. So the risk was that I was going to graduate, because what happened was I graduated in international affairs, and then I took a very, let's say, sharp turn and decided I was going to learn finance. And that was a risk that I took because of what I saw and what I learned. And then thankfully it was one internship from the next job that I ended up learning by doing. And I think that in all is, it comes with the territory. You learn by your experience, and I guess hopefully you listen to what is out there, what you are picking up. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very well said, Reema. Thank you very much for participating in the GPCA's first ever Youth Forum, and it was a pleasure to host you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.